We'll open up our public session. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Board members Joy Naylor and Megan Case Versolano will be on standby and will join us in closed session via teleconference. We do have a quorum, and I will identify closed session topics. Closed session topics are recommended suspended expulsions, public employee assignment, reassignment, appointment, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, complaints, conference with labor negotiator, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, and anticipated litigation. Is there any public comment on any items on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll adjourn to closed session. Call this meeting to order. All right, we're convening regular session. Board member Joy Naylor will be joining us on Zoom, and student board member Mireya Velasquez will also be joining us on Zoom. Board member Case Versolano is absent tonight. We have a couple of reminders for tonight's meeting. Per California Department of Public Health guideline, face masks are to be worn indoors regardless of vaccination status. We ask that all meeting attendees keep their face mask on while inside the building. Any member of the public wanting to provide public comment on items listed on tonight's agenda who did not RSVP in advance, please fill out the public comment form. It's a green form located at the back, in the back table in the back of the room. Please hand your form to Administrative Assistant Delia Smart before the item comes up on the agenda. Please fill out a separate form for each item you'd like to comment on. Members of the public providing public comment may use the microphone stand that's located in the front of the room. It's that one. Okay. We'll introduce the interpreter. Linguistica Interpreting and Translation will be interpreting the meeting into Spanish this evening via Zoom online platform. There is an option to select the Spanish audio at the bottom of the Zoom window. For members of the public who are with us in person this evening and would like to listen to the interpretation of the meeting in Spanish, you may pick up headphones from the table located in the back room. Lingüística, Interpreting and Translation interpretará la reunión en español esta noche a través de la plataforma en la línea de Zoom. Hay una opción para seleccionar audio en español en la parte inferior de la ventana de Zoom. Para miembros del público que están con nosotros en persona esta noche y les gustaría escuchar la interpretación de la reunión en español, pueden recoger audífonos de la mesa que está en silla del fondo de la sala. This meeting is being webcast live and recorded. The meeting or webcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Walter Gamonian.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joy is not present.
Okay, I'm going to read out action taken in closed session. In closed session by motion by Board Member Gamonian and a second by Board Member Gaby, the board agreed unanimously with one absent, 6 yeses on this item, and that is, it's the resolution of non-reelection of probationary certificate employees.
Joy is not present.
Yeah, Board Member Joy Naylor could not join us tonight. Okay, revisions to the agenda. There are revised meeting handouts for this evening's meeting, enclosure number 10, 11, 14, and 26. Our first item on the agenda is update on the 21-22 school year. Enclosure number 1, presented Superintendent Doug Cardoza.
Good evening. Good evening, President Guerrero, board members and audience. Doug Cardoza, interim superintendent. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing one of our exemplary teachers in the district, Mr. John Kuhn. I'm going to ask that Mr. Kuhn come up. He's brought in a great team of young FFA members and leadership. And I asked them to kind of take us through their opening ceremonies routines. Mr. Kuhn is a guy, you ask anyone across this district, he's a leader and he's all about kids. He does great things for kids every day. So I'm going to have him talk a little bit about FFA, and then they're going to kind of do a little demonstration of what they do as leaders in our district. So Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, board members, Mr. President, Mr. Superintendent, and all of the administrators and people here. Thank you so much for having us here tonight and inviting us here. As many of you might know, it is National FFA Week. And so Superintendent Cardoza and I thought it would be a great idea to come down and have an officer team do the opening closing ceremonies for you, so we can kind of see what that looks like. I want to stress that the Redwood officer team will be doing this tonight, but every high school in our district is very proficient at this and makes it look professional and does a really good job with it. I really want to invite all of the board members and administrators to get out and see the different ag departments and the different labs and farms that we have and see all the great work that these students are doing. With that, I'd like my officer team to take the places up here so I can introduce you, and then we'll get into opening and closing ceremonies. I'd like to present to everyone the 2021-2022 Redwood officer team. Our FFA president is Tessa Hemphill. Our FFA vice president is Shelby Weishart. Tonight, Shelby had to be at a prior engagement, so filling in from one of our freshman speaking teams is Marilee Kuhn. Our FFA secretary is Lily Wassam. FFA treasurer, Ava Kanishi. FFA secretary would be Reagan Richard. And our FFA sentinel, Madison Andrade. With that, I'd like to walk us through what the opening closing ceremony is. Since 1928, when the FFA had started, we have developed, and it's really hard to figure out exactly when it came into play, but we have developed an opening and closing ceremony that we do at all of our meetings and events. As we do this, this is something you can see nationwide, and it's something we take a lot of pride in doing. So with that, Madam President, why don't you walk us through it?
We are now holding a meeting of the Redwood FFA Chapter. Madam Vice President, are all officers at their stations? I shall call the roll of officers, determine if they're at their stations, and report back to you, Madam President. The Sentinel. Station Brother Brewer. Your duties there? Through this door, past many friends of the FFA. It is my duty to see that the doors are open to our bench at all times, and that they are welcome. I care for the meeting room and paraphernalia. I strive to keep the room comfortable and assist the president in making order. The reporter. The reporter is stationed by the flag. Why by the flag? As the flag covers the United States of America, so I strive to inform the people of order that every man, woman, and child may know that the FFA is a national organization that reaches from the state of Alaska to the Virgin Islands and from the state of Maine to Hawaii. The treasurer. Stationed at the Reynolds. Your duties there? I keep a record of the fees in this carefully and accurately. I encourage the rest of the members in part of the secretary. Stationed by the airport. Your duties there? I keep an accurate record of all meetings and correspond with other secretaries wherever court is grown and FFA members meet. The advisor.
Here by the owl.
Why stationed by the owl?
The owl is a time-honored emblem of knowledge and wisdom. Being older than the rest of you, I'm asked to advise you from time to time as the need arises. I hope my advice is always based on true knowledge and ripened with wisdom. Madam Vice President, why do you keep a plow at your station?
The plow is a symbol of labor and tillage of the soil. Without labor, neither knowledge nor wisdom can accomplish much. My duties require me to assist at all times in directing the work of our organization. I preside over meetings in the absence of our president, whose place is beneath the rising sun.
Why is the president so stationed?
The rising sun is a token of a new era in agriculture. If we will follow the leadership of our president, we shall be led out of the darkness of selfishness and into the glorious sunlight of brotherhood and cooperation. Madam President, all officers are at their stations. Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Secretary will call the roll of members. There are many members and numerous guests present, Madam President. Thank you. FFA members, why are we here?
To practice brotherhood, honor agricultural opportunities and responsibilities, and develop those qualities of leadership which an FFA membership possess.
May we accomplish our purposes. I now declare this meeting of the Redwood FFA Chapter duly open for the transaction of business or attention to any matters which may properly be presented. So that's how we would normally start one of our. So after that, we would proceed to give a treasurer and secretary report. We'll call the minutes from the last meeting, and then we would go into new business. And from there, we would close our meeting once we're done with everything else. So now I'll show you guys what that looks like. Madam Secretary, do you have a record of any further? I have none, Madam President. Does any member know of any new or unfinished business which should properly come before this meeting? We are about to adjourn this meeting of the Redwood FFA Chapter. As we mingle with others, let us be diligent in labor, just in our dealings, courteous to everyone, and above all, honest and fair in the game of life. I now declare this meeting adjourned.
And if you were impressed by that, you should see all these young ladies weld. They're quite good. Board members, administrators, anybody have any questions for us before we wrap this up?
I just want to say thank you. That was wonderful.
I want to start every meeting like that. I'm not kidding. It was so good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. That was just awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
And
you.
once again, please get out to all of our different chapters and all of our different ag departments. We'd love to see you there. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Wow, I agree. I mean, it's so refreshing to start that way. And you know, you hear how these kids speak and I see these kids that go on to college and their ability to speak is such a powerful tool. And you see them do well. They take on leadership roles. They get pulled into those because they speak well. They speak with confidence and clarity. And so, you know, do get out and see the different FFA programs. Go to the speaking contest. There's actual speaking contests that kids are involved in. And when those kids go off to college, they do quite well. So they're confident, they're poised, they're professional. And so kudos to them. So thank you for that. And again, Mr. Coon's a great guy. So, and he's always willing to take you through and show you the welding shops and all the great things they do with kids. A couple other things we just wanted to quickly spotlight again. We had our winter formal, which was a huge success. Around 1,400 kids attended. So a lot of fun, fantastic environment that was created there. So thank you to all staff and our staff at the site as well. So, and the last thing, Redwood, the newspaper, Abigail Miller had sent some images of the Redwood musical Footloose. Again, we have great things going on at our high schools. So if you didn't get a chance to see that one, check the calendar and get to the next ones. It looks like we have Golden West, April 7th and 8th, and we have Ridgeview, May 5th and 7th. And so get out and see those if you can. With that, any questions?
Any board member have any questions or comments? Okay. I have one RSVP for public comment on this item. Melissa Brewer.
Good evening. This is probably a little bit premature. So I'm here this evening to say, how long have we been doing this? This was supposed to be about the school year, correct? So how many meetings have we been asking you to unmask our kids? Like I said last meeting, 3 minutes is not very long to defend the life of your child, but I'm never going to stop until this madness ends. Email after email, public comment after public comment, we have all been met with the same response. Your hands are tied. There is no more you can do. It's the governor's fault. liability insurance, loss, doom and gloom, everything in between. Excuses, excuses, no solutions. Well, I sent you a solution last week. It's the same one I've been telling you about for a few meetings now. The difference is that several other school districts have had the courage to use this solution and set their students free to make the choice about masking. You've had the power all along to unmask the kids. Within the CDPH guidelines, and this has been solidified in the court systems and confirmed by the state, schools, not the governor, have the ultimate power over enforcement of masks. You can simply vote as a board to instruct Interim Superintendent Doug Cardoza to drop all enforcement measures regarding masks and return to your real job, education. I want to keep this brief and give others a chance to speak. So one final comment here and then I'll be done, maybe two. Mask choice now, no more games, no more delays, no more tyranny, no more excuses. You have had the power all along. You just got to find the courage. It's time for you to find the courage to do what is right. You know better. Now you can do better. You have the answers. Let me share with you some of the schools in California who've had the courage. Roosevelt Joint Unified, El Dorado Unified, Rescue Union Unified, Buckeye Union Unified, Latrobe Unified, Placerville Unified, Gold Trail Unified, Black Oak Mine Unified, East Nicholas High School, Nevada Joint Union School District, Eureka Unified, San Diego County District, Rancho Santa Fe District, Amador Unified, Fresno County School District has several schools within them that are doing this. John Adams Academy in Placer County, Conejo Unified, San Jose Unified, Los Alamitos Unified, presumably Clovis Unified tonight, Valley Life, you're in Visalia. You have a great group of educators and boards who have courage and the legal right to move forward. I hope you will do the right thing. If you don't, parents are just going to have to instruct their children no longer to wear masks. Thank you.
We'll move on to enclosure number 4.2, consideration of approval letter to Governor Newsom regarding returning local control to school boards, enclosure number 2. And I will read the letter at this time. Dear Governor Newsom, this letter is delivered to you on behalf of the Visalia Unified School District Governing Board. The Visalia Unified School District Board is disappointed by the continuing lack of leadership by you and the California legislature regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on students and schools. When you lifted the indoor masking requirement on February 15th, we were hopeful that you would provide guidance on the next step for schools. Instead, you told the media this week, we are in the process of transforming our public education system and moving out of this pandemic mindset that includes masks. That will happen. Question is when. It is time for that to change. COVID-19 is now in the endemic stage. Local school boards have always guided operations of their school districts through endemic conditions. Local school boards know their communities best. Local school boards are most equipped to make decisions that support social, emotional, and physical well-being of their students. It is your responsibility, along with the California legislature, to return local control over to schools to the duly elected school boards of each community. We respectfully request you to follow through on this responsibility and provide leadership needed from Sacramento and return decision-making to students and schools to local boards. Respectfully, Visalia Unified School District. So apparently there will be an announcement by the governor on February 28th. We are hoping that the governor will lift the mask mandate at that time, and at that time we will reevaluate our protocols. We are dealing with a mask mandate and we have to, otherwise we will lose our insurance. Teachers will will get their credentials revoked. We'll lose our funding, and we may have a state take over our schools, and we're not willing to do that. So is there any board discussion on this item?
I I called many of these school districts and it has not been easy peasy for them. Their teachers are very afraid because the state said they will take credentials away from teachers who are um, not enforcing the mandate. El Dorado School District did get their insurance yanked. These are not idle threats. They are happening. And just as much as you guys, we don't want this either. And so we feel as a board, we're going to wait until February 28th, which is Monday. And at that time, we will reevaluate this crazy, stupid mask mandate.
Any other board member? Ms. Gable?
You know, I think one of the things that we really do have to think about is that as part of our oath as educators, we do say that we will support the United States and the state of California, agree or disagree. It's in our oath. And when I'm hearing that our teachers are then potentially going to have credentials yanked, even besides that, we have teachers on both sides. We have teachers that want this mask mandate gone, you know, at the beginning of the year. But I'm not comfortable putting our staff in a position where we as a board are telling them not to follow a mandate. At this time it is, and even if I don't agree, I don't feel comfortable, especially with the date being so close on the 28th there and hoping for the best. I don't think that we can put our staff in a position where we tell them not to enforce a mandate and they get a credential yanked. You know, that's life-changing for a teacher.
Any other board member?
Yeah, I'd also like to say, I think as a board, we feel disappointed with the lack of guidance, right? Particularly when it comes to education, when it comes to schools. I also don't feel comfortable putting teachers or staff members, for that matter, in a position where, their local school board is saying one thing, the state of California is saying another, and their potential job and, is at risk and their life is at risk, right? And I also want to mention that we as board members have a fiscal responsibility to maintain our district as fiscally solvent. The fact that we have school districts that have begun to lose insurance, threats of funding, et cetera, and we haven't gotten to the ultimate possible consequence of an entire state takeover, right? Where we essentially lose all governing authority. And that has happened in the past in other situations. And so I would hate for our district and our board to lose that control or any authority over educational matters.
I'll just say too, it was not that long ago that I was sitting there and not here. And I felt the exact same way that you feel. So frustrated, so confused, felt like there wasn't leadership happening or whatever. But it's completely different when you know all of the ramifications that could happen. And for our kids to not be able to have school at all, or to have a school that is run by the governor that you don't agree with, is not something that we're willing to do. So.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the comments and I'll go by the RSVPs. Rachel Lewis. And please keep in mind that we're adhering to the 3-minute public comment and the 20-minute on one topic.
Good evening. I am Rachel Lewis, Area 7 resident and mother of kindergartner. Omicron is the only variant in California. Vaccines are not effective in preventing infection or death with coronavirus. Since the beginning of the year, the 15 million people in hyper-vaccinated counties with the average vaccination rate of 80% have had higher case count than the 15 million people in under-vaccinated counties with average vaccination rates of 59%. As 4 million positive tests for Omicron have been reported in California and millions more have been infected and never tested, the Omicron variant is running out of people to infect. The California 7-day case rate has decreased 91% in 5 weeks. Since January, the case rate in the state of New York has decreased 96%. The letter written by our school board suggests that Omicron will be endemic in Tulare County. Did an expert in epidemiology suggest the word endemic? Is that expert in the room with us to answer questions? Many honest experts think that your expert is wrong. Omicron is headed for extinction, the same as Alpha and Delta. By March 31st, there will be no more positive tests for Omicron, as the date for full herd immunity is rapidly approaching. With zero case counts approaching rapidly and without a vaccination, without vaccine that slows the spread of the only existing virus, why is anyone advocating vaccines and boosters? Enough talk about science, it's time to talk about political strategy. The board has deleted the YouTube video of every Visalia school board meeting in 2021. The board wants us to forget their embarrassing failures and broken promises in the past 12 months. They listened to teacher union mobsters in closed session while ignoring concerns of parents in open session. The board is pathetically asking an unresponsive state government to become responsive. The board already knows that the state will not grant any leniency to our school district. Parents are done waiting. We are sending hundreds of our kids to school without masks. As unmasked kids are segregated, 5 of the board members move closer to losing their seats in the November election. It is too late to apologize. The candidates parents selected to replace the board will not back down. Oh, and the teacher union mobsters, you will still have the loyalty of 2 remaining board members, but you are going to lose a lot of 2 to 5 votes. The parent-run Visalia School Board will not be for sale. The board will not be intimidated. Parents who wish to run for board or parents who wish to help our candidates are encouraged to join the Facebook group Tulare County Parents for School Board. It's time to end the rigged game. Our children are depending on us. Thank you.
Mr. Paul Bell.
Board President Guerrero, board members, Interim Superintendent Cardoza, those in attendance and all our staff. 247 years ago, General Washington paid for 5 ships to be the first Navy of the Continental Army. He commissioned a flag to be hung on each one of those ships. It was white. It had a pine tree in the center. And over the pine tree were 3 words: appeal to heaven. My name is Paul Belt, longtime resident of Visalia Unified and Visalia itself, a father, a grandfather, concerned citizen. I will use my 2 minutes to appeal to heaven. Almighty God, we ask that you would come right now and bring a new sense of your calling for every one of our board members and staff of this amazing school district. That, Lord, you set us in our positions. You gave us the very breath in our lungs to carry out good things with those that we love and those that we have differences with. But Father, we have need for forgiveness, for repentance, for restoration. And none of us are outside of that. I ask for your forgiveness. I repent for the things I've said that have not been worth saying, the people I've offended. Father, would you forgive us for offending one another, for diverting what is the real issue before us? Would you come right now and bring clarity of thought, solidify decisions to be made for the good of all students and all parents and all staff of this school district. Holy Spirit, come and bring a sense of peace and unity like we've never seen, and we may not understand because it will be beyond our stirring. For you are the one to receive all glory and power. You are the one to be glorified in our lives as we seek to do the best that we can with what we can and who you've made us to be. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Brittney Christensen.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to suggest that the board reconsider the current meeting protocol of not allowing everybody present to be in this room when the room capacity is significantly higher than the number of people that are in here right now. And there are lots of people waiting in the overflow that wish to be in this room. Second of all, I think the board is misinterpreting the upcoming guidance from the state on the 28th, when they basically said they're going to reassess at that time and maybe possibly perhaps give a date to rethink the mask mandate. I don't think that that's going to be the end of it. The past few weeks, we have watched as our governor and Department of Health have moved the goalposts once again with regards to our children and their schools. They seem intent to drag out mandatory school masking as long as they possibly can, despite a host of evidence at this point indicating that masks are harmful to the educational and emotional well-being of our children. We're seeing speech standards quietly lowered to accommodate the losses in language acquisition. We're seeing teens and young adults in prolonged mental health crises and an uptick in behavioral issues. We as adults go about all of our activities unmasked while expecting our youngest and least vulnerable to COVID to wear them in perpetuity. Your school community has spent the last 2 years following the rules. Now we are asking you to make a choice, and it is a choice that would follow the precedent set by 19 and counting other California school districts to stop enforcing mask mandates at our schools. Post the signs, encourage their use, and leave it there. End the enforcement, the segregating, isolating, and punishing of children for the heinous infraction of not wanting to wear a mask for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. We recognize that while the risks to children from COVID are smaller than the risks posed to them by getting in a car or swimming in a pool, some families may feel the need to continue masking for personal or health reasons. We support this choice and would never seek to take that choice away from any families or teachers who see fit to continue to mask. However, most of your students, and I would expect many of your teachers, are ready to move on and, to quote Governor Newsom, treat COVID as an endemic rather than an acute pandemic. The most important step is to allow your families the choice in masking their children. Tonight, you have a choice. You have power that we do not. We, as your students, families, and constituents, are pleading with you to make the right choice and end the enforcement of masking in our schools. It would make a world of difference to our children. Thank you.
Justine Perez.
Hi, my name is Justine Perez. I'm in 7th grade and I attend to Green Acres Middle School. I came here to say it's unfair for us kids to wear a mask when the very person who made this rule up, our own governor, isn't wearing one. When I said I was not going to wear a mask to school, they treated me like I had a contagious disease. They put me outside away from my fellow classmates. I now have to change by myself in my locker room with no one in there just because I refuse to wear a mask. They clear it out and allow me to get dressed. That makes me feel very sad because I'm singled out and I feel discriminated against because of a personal belief. They treat all the kids who refuse to wear masks differently. It's sad that kids have to fight for their own rights because the adults who should protect them will not stand up for us. I'm asking you to hear my voice, please. Give us our right to choose. It's been almost 2 years now. We have done everything you've asked us to do, learning from home on Zoom, half-day schedules, going to school, wearing a mask all day, even in PE. Now only wearing it while we're indoors. Enough is enough. Please let us choose. Please let us be mask-free. Thank you.
Crystal Reynolds. Crystal Reynolds.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Cardoza. My name is Crystal Reynolds, and I am a mother of 3 with 2 children in the district. Actually, after just hearing what happened to our family over here, I hope I get this right, the Perez family, I want to let you know I have been in touch with my legal advisor, and I will tell you those conditions are illegal. And what you're going to have, I know right now we're worried about teachers losing their credentials. You better be more concerned about parents going after those credentials of your teachers, because it will happen. I do want to, on one respect, I do want to thank you guys for putting together a letter. I think that's one action that I definitely can, very much appreciate that you guys took time to put a letter together for Newsom. But I will tell you that that letter, in my opinion, has no teeth. And what we need back in this board is local control. That is number one. You cannot operate until you have your local control back. So what I am proposing is I have taken some of the verbiage of that letter and I have rewritten it. And I'm hoping that you will listen to this. And if this is of consideration for you guys, I will leave. I have copies here. You can take it, you can use it, but I actually feel like this will get you guys some control. Give me 1 second. My phone locked out here. Sorry. Okay, so my letter states, Governor Newsom, this letter is delivered to you on behalf of the Visalia Unified School District Governing Board. Effective immediately, the Visalia Unified School District Governing Board will resume and reinstate all local control and decision-making powers to our elected governing board. As you, Governor Newsom, announced on February 15, 2022, COVID-19 is now in an endemic stage. Entering the endemic stage, we expected you and the California legislature to follow through with returning local control over the schools to the duly elected school boards of each community. This did not happen. Local school boards know their communities best. Local school boards are most equipped to make decisions that support the social, emotional, and physical well-being of their students, staff, and families. It is our responsibility as a governing board to take the lead and assume full decision-making power for the betterment of the students, staff, and families of our district in which we represent. Local school boards have already guided or have always guided operations of their school districts through endemic conditions. We are fully equipped and capable to take the lead at this time. This board's decision to resume and reinstate local control is not a request and non-negotiable. This would be a powerful statement, and this would allow you the control to start what you need to start immediately. Please help us make the masks optional. Our kids are counting on you. Thank you.
Lauren Mitten.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. My name is Lauren Mitten. I am a wife, mother, critical care nurse, and resident of Visalia for over 30 years. I believe my experience of working in COVID ICUs and raising a child with disabilities makes me uniquely qualified to advocate for masked choice. I have seen with my own eyes the consequences of this virus. I don't doubt for a single second the realness of COVID. I have held the hands of many patients as they take their last breath while their families are crying in agony because they aren't allowed in the room. There was a time when it seemed no matter what we did, we couldn't save them. That was COVID in 2020. COVID in 2022 is much different. It's time the school board recognizes that, as well as the collateral damage being done to our kids, and adopt a new posture towards masking. Our children have endured the brunt of this pandemic for far too long. Our daughter Paige had a panic attack during distance learning. Her Chromebook froze and she was worried she was going to miss something. A couple weeks later, I went to wake her up for school and she told me she didn't want to get out of bed. She said she was sad and that every day felt the same. She wanted life to go back to normal. Our 8-year-old was depressed and her mental health was declining. Since then, we've enrolled our daughter in a private school, one that supports parents in making health-related decisions for their children. She is a happy, healthy, and thriving third grader. She no longer carries a burden that was never hers to begin with. I wish I could say the same thing for our son. Our son Hudson is a kindergartner and attends a special education program through Visalia Unified. I want to point out before moving forward that his team is packed with incredible people, and I am so thankful for them. Even so, the last 2 years of masking have been detrimental to our son's development, both academically and psychologically. Our son struggles to go to school each morning. He screams as I turn down the street and pull into the school parking lot. He was never like this before. I watch in my mirror as he clamps down on his hand with his teeth. I wish I could show you so that you could really understand
pictures of his arm and how horribly he bites himself. This behavior started and has worsened since March of 2020. Coincidence? I really don't think so. Our son is developmentally delayed and nonverbal. When something is said that he does not understand, he relies on facial expressions, emotions, and social cues of those around him to decipher what to do next. A mask impedes all of those things. He has gone from a happy-go-lucky kid to a child that struggles severely with separation, change, and transitions. Can a mask be blamed for all of this? To be honest, I don't know. But I know the masks are not helping. A real conversation at our dinner table: will we return to Visalia Unified for another school year of masking? Board
Your
members,
time is up.
I urge you, I'm almost done. Board members, I urge you to take back control and adopt a policy of mask choice. Do it for our children. Do it for the employees of Visalia Unified. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Thank you for your time and consideration.
We need to stick to the 3 minutes so everybody can talk. Janelle Murphy.
Good evening. Really didn't want to cry this time, but here I am again. My name is John L. Murphy, and I'm a parent of a kindergartner. I'm back speaking tonight because absolutely nothing has been done by the board in regards to COVID policies. I'd like to start off by saying I work in the construction industry. I have my 40-hour OSHA HAZWOPER cert and have been fit tested for an N95 respirator multiple times for different jobs. When I worked on the fire cleanup in Mariposa, I had to wear full body PPE hazmat suit along with the respirator. Now, I'm not medically trained, but from the experience I do have, I don't see how my 5-year-old wearing a cloth mask that he chews on is doing anything productive. It actually seems quite counterproductive. Not only are his masks soaking wet, dirty, and full of holes by the end of the day, but it's also affecting his learning at a critical time for speech development. He is still taking speech because he's not able to get the help he needs in class because the teacher cannot see his mouth and vice versa. Before he started school pre-COVID, I was warned that once he becomes school age, we will always be sick. And that has definitely been the case. When you live with a young child, I am convinced there is no avoiding getting sick. The best we could do is be diligent about hand washing, which has not seemed to be much of a concern at school. When he gets home, his hands are disgusting. I'd like to acknowledge the letter sent to Newsom asking for local control, which I appreciate, but at this point in time, it's simply not enough. The state does not have custody of my child. Therefore, you shouldn't be asking the state for permission to unmask my child. You should be asking me, the parent, whether it's okay to mask or unmask. Instead of focusing on these nonsense masks, maybe shift the focus on teaching kids to cover their mouths with their elbows when coughing or sneezing and making sure they get their hands washed. Instead of sending yet another letter asking Newsom for permission on what to do with our children, instead tell Newsom that you have been put in an unsustainable position and can't be made to be the mask police. And now we all know that you won't lose coverage from your insurers. Your focus should be on education. It's time to start doing what you were elected to do and listen to the parents. Thank you.
Megan Vargas. Megan Vargas. Delia, is this a phone call?
Overflow,
What?
overflow room.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. I would like to share with you a personal experience. My daughter returned home from school a few weeks ago, clearly distressed and defeated.
She wasn't her usual bubbly self. I had asked her multiple times what was wrong, and she finally told me. She told me her class had to be quarantined to a separate playground on her campus, one that was separated from the rest of the school. They had to eat their lunch outside with their masks on and take bites of their lunch while an aide told them to pull them back up. You could imagine my surprise when she told me this. She then asked me, "Mom, why is the school doing this? Why were they separated from the rest of the school if the student with COVID was not even in attendance?" That was the moment when I stopped and I took a look at myself in the mirror. What was I allowing to happen to her? I felt like a worthless mother that day. My heart was crushed, right along with hers. The biggest question that comes to my mind is, what are we doing? Our local news this last Sunday stated that there was an uptick in ER visits for children with eating disorders and self-harm. How are we continuing to treat the least affected population with the harshest restrictions? I know you all see the damage that's being done. You can't deny it. I know you hear what's going on inside the schools, and I hear it myself. I have clients that are teachers, work at the district office, principals, school staff, and counselors. I hear about all of it. Yet we continue with these ridiculous mandates that are clearly harming our children more than they're helping. I know you and all of us here see the hypocrisy coming from our government, yet week by week we fall in line. Our children are masked all day long, and after school they can attend dance, soccer, baseball, basketball, and are able to just be kids. Does COVID not exist in those places? School used to be a place of laughter, educational growth, friendship, and creativity. Now it feels like a prison for these kids. They're worn out, and so are the teachers. These 2 past years, we have asked so much of them. We are taking away their innocence, and it's time to stop this foolishness. There are no more justifications for the masking of our children. Not your funding, not your rules, and certainly not politics. Common sense and healthy self-understanding tell us that humanity has its limitations, and this is our limit. And you're either with us or you're against us. Thank you.
So that was our 20-minute limit right there. This is an action item. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Maybe motions to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Blair. All in favor?
Student Board Representative Velasquez,
I vote yes.
Board Member Blair,
Yes.
Board Member Casper Soleno.
She's off.
Oh, that's right. What am I thinking? Sorry about that. Board Member Gaby,
Yes.
I vote yes. President Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas,
Yes.
motion carries 5-2 absent.
Our next item on the agenda is early learning report and closure number 3. And that would be Andre Pacina and Amy Sullivan.
Good evening, Board President Guerrero, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Cardoza. My name is Andre Pacina. I'm the Administrator of Curriculum and Instruction. I'm just here to welcome Amy Sullivan, our Coordinator of Early Learning, as she gives an update on preschool. I just want to thank her for all of the tireless work that she's been doing to lead this new initiative that's been brought by the state to basically redo universal preschool within 5 years. So thank you so much, Amy.
Good evening, Board President Guerrero, Interim Superintendent Mr. Cardoza, fellow board members, and our community. As introduced earlier, I'm Amy Sullivan, and I serve currently as the coordinator of our early learning department. Our purpose this evening actually is to talk a little bit about our update on our preschool learning. So tonight, I'll be sharing with you how we measure and support our developmental growth in our learning. I'm so sorry, let me grab my little clicker here. There you go. So sorry. So I'll be sharing with you how we measure and support our developmental growth in our early learning program. And I'll also share how our focus for our growth and development will be connected to the new implementation of universal transitional kindergarten. So first, let's talk a little bit about our preschool learning.
Our state assessment to measure growth is the desired results developmental profile, better known as DRDP. It is administered through teacher observations, family and caregiver observations, and lastly, lots and lots of student examples, either anecdotal notes, student works, and videos as well. So our ongoing documentation that we collect throughout the entire year does have some fall and spring checkpoints. The information rated is on a developmental continuum based on age level expectations, and the information is used to guide our instruction and to meet individual student needs. So during our parent conferences, parents actually partner with our staff, and we create a plan with our families so that they'll be able to follow that plan that they collaborate with and to support their child's growth and development. So let's take a look at last year's 2021 data. This data represents 4 key domain areas of learning for our children ages 3 to 5. It's important to note that information rated here is based on age level expectation checkpoints. The blue color data that you'll see there is our fall 60-day information. So our staff collect a lot of information, observations from family and their classroom learning environment within the 60 calendar days, and then they rate that information. And then 6 months later, we've provided ongoing observations throughout the entire year. And the clear box there is our spring data. So you'll see a 6 months difference there. When we reviewed the data for our state program self-evaluation that we give to the state, we indicated that the data here represents 5 months of distance learning and 3 months of a 2-day-a-week classroom instruction. So now that we have students back in class for 5 days a week, let's take a look at our current fall 60-day data. The state modified the reporting for this year, and so they combined both the language and the literacy domain there in the middle, resulting in 3 data points on this particular slide. So when we look at social emotional development, we look at things such as self-regulation, persistence, engagement, and attention span, which is really important at this age level. And then when we look at language and literacy development, our staff look for evidence of letter knowledge, expressing their ideas through advanced sentence structures, and how they engage with books. And lastly, math development at this age includes number concepts, shapes, attributes, and counting. So in our VUSD program, we plan for 5 key factors that help each child develop their full potential by age 5. We address our student data to make program changes by focusing on the areas of healthy home, connect, talk, play, and community. You'll notice our icons right up there. So when we think about healthy home, we think about supporting our healthy home. We partner with our families, and we always keep that partnership with our families right in the forefront of our program planning. So we provide ongoing parent engagement opportunities to address some of our data that I just shared. For example, we had over 200 families attend a virtual parent meeting for literacy one night. So we were really excited to have that many folks on Zoom at one time. We also utilize our District First 5 social worker through our referral system. This has been especially helpful since this is our first year ever to be able to provide preschool age children access to a social worker, especially their younger siblings there at home, to get those access for interventions. And then as a part of our enrollment process, parents complete the Ages and Stages questionnaire, better known as ASQ. It is a universal screener. It gives parents opportunities to share concerns and questions they may have that they've noticed about their children, such as delayed speech production, motor development, or even behavior concerns. So we share those screening results with our parents and then begin addressing our monitoring in identified areas. Our next factor is connect. We believe that adults in the classroom need to be having 180 minutes of meaningful interactions each day to impact student success. Thinking back to our fall data, this staff member actually in this picture here is providing opportunities to develop language around problem solving, cause and effect, and negotiating shared use of materials. Students also receive daily lessons and support through our second step curriculum, which addresses social and emotional learning and important life skills. And lastly, we utilize our early learning behavior specialist who works with both staff and students to build supports for learning positive behaviors in the classroom. Talk is our next critical factor. Our program believes that speaking and listening are the precursors to later development of reading and writing success. So on an earlier slide, I showed that the fall literacy and language development was at 16% of age level expectations. But we know that students have many curiosities and wonders that may not have had the experience to use those language structures to ask questions or compare characters in a story that their teacher has read. And then there's play, a critical role in playing. It serves many, many different functions. We provide many hands-on experiences to develop beginning math and literacy concepts. And play naturally also provides that opportunity to teach executive functioning skills, such as increased attention span and persistence. And lastly is community. We all realize the impact of the powerful impact of that sense of belongingness that our classrooms and our school sites provide. And we also rely on our community partners to support our students and families and our program itself. And those are some of our partners there on our screen. So moving into a discussion about universal pre-kindergarten, you'll recall that I shared this particular slide during our board study session. And through the implementation of the universal pre-kindergarten, or UPK, by school year 25-26, all 4-year-olds will have access to attend 1 year of pre-kindergarten, either through state preschool, expanded ages for universal transitional kindergarten, or through other private or community-based organizations and programs. In an effort to assist in the planning, California Department of Education has given 5 focus areas that they would like for school districts to develop in the plan. And the planning includes an integrative department approach, where there is ongoing collaborations from our facilities, curriculum and instruction, business services, human resources, and our school sites themselves. So we look forward to bringing this plan back to you once it's been finalized and share by June 30th. And with that, we'd like to thank our school board for the ongoing support of our early learning program here at Visalia Unified. We look forward to sharing more of the implementation and other programs developed for our youngest learners here in the USD in the future. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions or comments from the board members?
I have a question, but first, thank you for all your work in this. And anytime I've been in a preschool classroom, it is just a fabulous place to be. You have amazing staff, and the kids there are not only learning, they are super happy and excited. One question on, I think it was like slide 12, but anyway, it says that the parents can choose to send their TK student, if you're age eligible, they can still choose to go to preschool. Is that a change, or so they have a choice of like either preschool or TK, even if they're TK age?
So to that slide and to your question, Ms. Gaby, next year will be the beginning of the phase-in timeline. So right now, a student is TK eligible if they turn 5 by December 2nd. So next year they'll begin rolling the age requirement back by 2 months. So children who turn 5 by February 2nd will be eligible for universal transitional kindergarten. However, there is parent choice involved for those families. So a family might decide to make a decision to send their child to state preschool versus universal transitional kindergarten, depending on which program meets their needs. So there'll be parent choice involved with that. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. Is that a change though? Because I was thinking before, once they became TK eligible, they couldn't go to preschool anymore.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So with the new implementation, parents will actually have a choice. If they are age eligible for TK, they can also still make that choice for state preschool.
Thank you.
I have one question too. I think I asked this at the study session, but universal pre-K is 3 hours a day, is that correct? Whereas TK is 6?
So state preschool provides a 3-hour instructional day, and universal transitional kindergarten will be the same amount of time as our kindergarten program. It's a 6-hour day.
Thank you. I want to echo Trustee Gaby's comments on, what a wonderful job you and all your staff are doing. As parents can prepare and as their children are coming of age, can you speak to some of the other eligibility requirements to state preschool? So I know you mentioned right now that age is one of these factors. Are there any other eligibility requirements that, would limit their option between state preschool or universal TK? Is it based on income, other factors, et cetera?
Absolutely. So for state preschool, there's several different opportunities to qualify to be enrolled in state preschool. And some of those factors might be foster, homeless, 4-year-olds in the past have had a priority versus over a 3-year-old child. Income can be a factor, but we always try and work with our families. There are some other eligibility criteria right now in the governor's proposal that will be a consideration moving forward if it's passed. So there's several different options. So
thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, this is information only. Thank you. We'll move on with our agenda. The next item on the agenda is general public comment. General public comment on any school related topic may be heard at this time. The board asks that any public comment on an item listed on tonight's agenda be addressed at the time the item comes up for discussion by the board. Pursuant to board policy, the board may limit individual comments to no more than 3 minutes and individual topics to 20 minutes. It is recommended you begin your comments by stating your name. Again, we're sticking with our 3-minute limit and our 20-minute overall limit. First person is Melissa Brewer.
You guys are all cowards. None of you deserve your seat. 2 of you were not elected by us people. You need to resign tonight and be out of here. You cannot support the children. I have nothing here that I've written that's worth saying. 2 of you know better than this. I know you because I've talked to you. You know better than this. You know better, Walta. You know better, Catalina. I'm sorry, you know better. These are our kids. You do not have permission to mask them anymore. Gaby, you are an educator. You should be willing to give back your credential in order to protect kids. I'm a teacher too, and guess what? I would lay down my life for my students who are adults. And every single teacher in this district should be willing to do that. And idle threats from the governor? Are you kidding me? Who cares if they take away a teacher credential? Is it going to take away every single teacher's credential in the entire state? We'd have no teachers. Quit listening to the threats and quit listening to Greg Price back there, who's just going to threaten our teachers more. The teachers unions own the governor and they own you. And the parents are going to replace every single one of you because none of you deserve your seats anymore. I'm sorry, I'm done. I am done. This is my kid. My kid came home again today with school from a headache from the dang mask. Quit hurting my kid. I'm done. He is my son. I will lay down my life for him. I will protect him, and I'm not going away. I'm not going away. You all know better. In your heart, you know better. Take a vote. Drop the enforcement. I am done with this. We're all done with this. These parents behind me aren't going away. There's over 200 people here tonight. Next meeting, when you introduce your new superintendent, you're gonna have over 500 people here. And the media. You want that circus? Do you? Drop the enforcement tonight. No more waiting. The governor's gonna fail us. He doesn't care about our kids. He only cares about the money that he's getting from the teachers union. And let me tell you what, he'll be gone soon enough. You guys need to be able to sleep at night. And I don't know how you're doing it.
Jesse Perez. Jesse Perez.
My name is Jesse Perez, and I didn't write anything because I'm just going to speak from the heart. I have 4 daughters that attend Visalia Unified School District. You heard from one of them, my daughter Justine Perez, and what she's going through because she has a right to stand up for what she believes in is wrong. She's sent outside by herself to sit and do her schoolwork. She is told she cannot dress with the rest of her classmates because she refuses to wear a mask. Now, you as parents, put yourself in that situation. Think about what that child is going through because she has the right to stand up for herself. Today, she was told she could not go to lunch with the rest of her classmates. She was told she had to stand outside and her principal had to literally go get the food for her, bring it outside, and then tell her, go back to your room and eat, like a prisoner. While the rest of the students were sitting in the cafeteria maskless. Do you think that is right? And I'm just going to address this. For you who say we got to listen to mandates and guidelines, look at the people who are putting those in place. How about we all just say we hold our breath while we're going to school? And you, ma'am, you said you were here with us just a little while ago. You were sitting with us. You knew how we felt. Okay? How about you help us out? Because each and every one of you, and I'm going to close with this. Me as a father, we just started something this week. And as you can see, there's people in that other room. There's people in this room. And there's more people who are ready to stand. And this is not a threat. This is a promise. Things are about to happen. They're about to happen. Parents are tired. But as a parent, I had to ask myself this question. If my child is going through what they are going through, can I just sit here and stay quiet? No. You were appointed by the parents. You were appointed to protect our kids, to educate them. I want to ask you a question. How can you live with yourself knowing what is going on with our children? You heard stories tonight, what they're going through. They're biting themselves, their speech, everything that's happening. But for what? So you can say we're listening to our governor. You are not supposed to be listening to the governor. You are supposed to be listening to us, we the people.
Crystal Reynolds. Crystal Reynolds.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Cardoza. So I'm just gonna go with everything I've been going through since December. So in December of 2021, I presented this board with a letter of inquiry with a list of several questions from many of your concerned constituents regarding the constitutionality of the practices you are implementing in respect to the forcing of masking, coercion of masking, testing, quarantine, and vaccinations. This inquiry has remained unanswered. 2 weeks ago, you were served with notices of showing of clean hands, and that again went unanswered. Tonight, I will be serving you with the signed and notarized affidavits from your constituents and reading you just a couple small portions of this affidavit, just more so the beginning and the end, just to give you an idea of what it entails. It brings me no joy to serve these to you. However, the failure of this board to act in 2 years has been 2 years too long. We are ready for change. Please take notice. Affiant declares that the people hold all the power in this state and their constitutional rights are being violated by Governor Newsom's unlawful emergency orders. First, it was guidance, then it was a standard, and finally, it was a mandate. Policy by press release is not constitutional. The rights of the people to determine their own personal choices are preserved by the US Constitution, and those rights are common to all people across the nation, regardless of there being no specific provision included in any single state constitution. Towards the end, if no response is received in the form of an affidavit sworn under the penalty of perjury within 3 days, showing the constitutional provisions authorizing this trampling on the people's rights, such silence will be construed to represent tacit agreement to all of the mentioned facts, point for point, and also tacit agreement that this affidavit can be used as evidence of, number one, malfeasance and maladministration committed while acting as servants of the people under the provisions of the California Constitution. Number two, admission of liability for any resulting injury where children, parents, and/or employees were forced, coerced, and harassed into compliance, which deprived them of their patient healthcare rights and their constitutional rights. And three, confessions of violation of statutes safeguarding the rights of the people under the California and United States constitutional provisions. And finally, number four, this silence represents tacit agreement that no court shall re-examine this matter, that the court shall accept the above several agreements listed, regardless of the trespasser, as truth and law. Affiant agrees to arbitration by an arbiter of affiant's choice. And so now I will have Ms. Melissa Brewer serve you your affidavits, and you are served. Thank you.
Rex Williams.
My name is Rex Williams. I'm a father of two in this district, lifelong Visalia resident, grandson of LJ Williams. It really pains me to even have to speak to you guys this evening. However, situations as they are, tonight I'm serving each of you with a letter of intent to file a claim against your school insurance liability policy that is held by a risk management company in lieu of your individual liability bonds that are required by state law for every person who is elected or appointed to government or public office. Tonight, we're following the rule of law. We've had enough. You might not realize this yet, but each of you is personally liable for a predetermined amount stated in your policy for damages per claim. In your policy, each occurrence is one claim filed against your policy. Each occurrence carries a predetermined deductible that you must pay prior to the insurance company covering the rest of your damages. Things are about to get a lot more uncomfortable for each one of you. You are receiving 12 letters each. That means you could lose your house, your car, your job, your retirement, etc. if you do not pay attention. You are in violation of multiple state, federal, and international laws. And based on the most recent case in Illinois, you could be facing time in federal prison for your actions if you do not cease and desist. A downstate Illinois judge issued a ruling declaring Governor Pritzker's emergency rules for COVID-19 mitigations in schools null and void. That's case law, effectively stopping the state's mask mandate in school buildings. Sangamon County Circuit Court Judge Raylene Grishal issued the order Friday afternoon in a lawsuit brought by hundreds of parents in more than 145 school districts who claim the mask order denies students due process. Statutory rights have attempted to be bypassed through the issuance of executive orders and emergency rules, she stated in the 29-page order. This type of evil is exactly what the law was intended to constrain. I don't want to see any of this happen to you. All I want is what is best for you and for our children. The district is set to receive over $142.5 million in ESSR funds. However, in order to receive all these funds, the district must abide by the CDC and federal government's requirements concerning COVID-19. In other words, you have sold the health, safety, and welfare of our children to the federal government. You have 7 business days upon receipt of this notice to correct the violations of the schools and the school district, which are outlined in the notice of intent, including removal of all COVID-19 mandates you have enforced on our children and the staff members of each school. May I have Mrs. Williams please present and serve? You've been served. Thank you, and God bless America.
Stacy Day.
Good evening, board. I am a product of Visalia Unified. I have children in Visalia Unified, and I am a teacher in Visalia Unified. I come to you tonight. I have many things on my heart, but I'm only going to share one tonight. I'm going to share as a teacher. I think you guys have many decisions to make. And I think when you have many decisions to make, you need to understand all sides. So I would like to bring up some stuff that was brought up at the last meeting by my union rep. My union rep in the last meeting shared that between 100 and 300 teachers, that was his estimate, would not come if masks were made optional. I think that you guys need to know that there is that group, but there is also a group of teachers and staff that feel opposite. We feel opposite, and he does not represent all of us. And that is my concern, because he stands up here and acts like he does. He might represent the majority, but the minority still is going to have as much of impact. So he told you guys, okay, if those 100 to 300 teachers don't show up, you can't function. If the people that feel that I do don't show up, whether it's teachers or staff, you guys won't be able to function either. Now, I'm not threatening in any way. I'm just letting you know there are teachers on the other side of the board. He does not speak for all of us. And the parents need to know that there are teachers and staff that support them and stand with them, and that we're not afraid to do it. Because you know what? Many of the teachers, they will come and they will stand with me. But there are some that are scared. They won't stand. There are some that tell me, you know what? I want to back off. I'm too afraid. And I think that's wrong. He also, at the last meeting, shared that many students and parents wouldn't send their students if masks were optional, if they were optional. And he, in that whole thing, he also shared and asked you, what do you tell them? Well, what do you tell everybody who's sitting in here that feels opposite? He didn't share that side. He doesn't speak for all of us. And I think that it's wrong that he's up here not presenting both sides. But you know what? He's supposed to represent the majority. So I'm going to represent the minority, I guess. And I'm going to make sure that you guys understand that way you have all the facts. That way it's fair to you guys, it's fair to the parents, it's fair to the students. And there should be freedom of choice. There has to be freedom of choice. Even in the classroom, as a teacher, you get people to buy in with freedom of choice. You get those students to buy in with freedom of choice. It should be freedom of choice. Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice.
Tracy Contreras. She's not here? Okay. All right, Nancy Moore.
My name is Nancy Moore. This is my 7th year as a high school teacher in this district, and I had lots of things that I was going to share with you tonight. But I'm changing it up because you are all professional people. I know that you care about our students as we do. I know that you want to do the right thing and you're afraid to do it. I spend a good portion of my day encouraging my students to do hard things. They are having a hard time. And I am their cheerleader, I'm their coach, and I feel like I need to do that tonight. I want to encourage you, you must do hard things in your position. It is not an easy thing to do, but are our children important? Are we saying children are the most important thing? Then do the right thing, do the hard thing, and protect our children, provide choice. I don't think that we are in the minority as staff who want choice. I think we are the majority. And I know that my students want choice. They're tired of this. They're discouraged. So go team, go. Let's do the right thing, okay?
Darla Rambunga. She's not here. Sabrina Fletcher. Not here? Okay. Jason Wilkinson. Okay, the other ones are phone. Joseph Beaton.
Hi, Mr. Beaton. Hold on just a moment. I'm going to let you know when you can begin your comments. Mr. Beaton, you may now begin your comments. You're live with the Board of Education. Oh, sorry. Mr. Beaton, can you begin again? Sorry.
Hello, board. Hello, parents. Whoop.
Mr. Beaton, can you turn off your computer, please?
I have, thank you. Sorry about that. I was expecting a call during agenda item 4.2. I've really admired the parents that have spoke before me. I was expecting to speak during agenda item 4.2, but here I am during this agenda item. And I don't have anything prepared once again, but I'm gonna let you guys off the hook tonight. The parents have already spoke for me. I think it's very important that transparency take place. Randy asked that you make the YouTube videos once again accessible to the public. You've deleted every video from 2021. I don't even know who you is that deleted all those videos. Would somebody please raise their hand if they deleted those videos? I get 3 minutes for this, so I can waste your time. Who deleted the videos? Okay, who up there didn't delete the videos? Randy, I know you didn't. I know Catalina, you didn't. Raise your hand if you did not delete the videos. Yeah, you don't have to respond. You don't have to turn this into a conversation. I guess nothing's a conversation. As of this week, I have pledged $10,000 to the candidates that are going to replace 5 of you. You know which 5 you are. That 10,000 is going to be followed by a lot more thousands because I'm just one person. I'm just the angriest. Transparency. When the new board comes in, there will be transparency. Goodbye to you all. This has been miserable. I don't want to be here. I don't want any part of this. I just wanted my kindergartner to get an education. Well, this is what you get when you did do what you did. God bless you all. That's all I have to say tonight. Good night, board. Good night, parents.
And our last person is Barbie Wilcox. And the timer just be set at 3 minutes to, we're already got almost at 20.
There is no answer.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is consent calendar. Would any board member like to pull an item off of consent calendar?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, who
I'd like
said-
to. I'd like to pull number 11, please.
Enclosure 11?
Mhm.
Okay, anybody, any other items? Okay, do we have a motion for the balance of the agenda?
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gaby, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Blair. All in favor?
Student Board Member Velasquez,
Yes.
Board Member Gaby.
Yes.
I vote yes. President Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas,
Yes.
Board Member Blair.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2 absent.
Okay, enclosure number 11.
I think Mrs. Selma Villa.
Hello, thank you for pulling the item. We have an error on enclosure number 11 under classified management appointments assignments. Steve Pena is listed there. It says new position. It's actually a replacement. So he's taking the place of an employee who moved to another position. So I just wanted to point out the error. So it's approved correctly.
Can I get a motion to approve this enclosure?
All motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Villegas made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Gaby. All in favor?
President Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas,
Yes.
Board Member, yeah. I'm sorry, Board Member Velasquez, your vote.
Yes.
And then Board Member Blair,
Yes.
Board Member Gaby.
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carries 5-2 absent, Student Board Member voting yes.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is resolution of commendation of Edmund Edward Weisinger, enclosure number 17. Mr. Gridiron.
Good evening, Board President Guerrero, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Cardoza, Brandon Gridiron, Administrator of Equity and Student Services. Tonight, we are going to be bringing forward a resolution accommodation of a gentleman named Edmund Weisinger. But I will be remiss to not bring up the fact that during difficult times like these, because these are difficult times, it's difficult to sit back there and hearing the stories and hearing the challenges of what's going on. But it's also a recognition that we have people out here doing great things and trying to make the best of a difficult situation. And this is one example of that. And we also have some students who also were instrumental in uncovering this story. And I think it's one that is definitely noteworthy and needs to be shared. Tonight, I will read this resolution of commendation and share the story with you all, and then it'll be available for you all to see it as well. But then also would like to invite our students up and our teacher who actually helped to share this story. And so I'll go ahead and read the resolution now. Whereas in recognition of a courageous man, a minority member of our community who played an integral role in Visalia history, he stood for something we all believe in, which is the best education and opportunity for our children. His case represents a significant turning point in the desegregation of schools in California and eventually in the United States of America. And whereas Edmund Edward Weisinger was born into South Carolina slavery in 1816 to a Cherokee father and an African-American mother, after over 30 years of slavery, he followed his master to work in California goldfields. On October 30th, 1854, he earned enough money to buy his freedom. He then migrated to Central California, where he married and raised 8 children. Eventually, he and his family settled in Tulare County in a town called Visalia. And whereas when his son Arthur was 12 years old, Mr. Weisinger took him to be enrolled in the white school in Visalia. The schoolmaster denied his request and told Mr. Weisinger to take his son to the colored school. Outside of town, Mr. Weisinger challenged the right for his son to attend the Visalia school and lost in the Tulare County Superior Court. He fought that decision, and on January 29th, in 1890, he won his case in the California Supreme Court, and his son Arthur was able to attend the Visalia school. Mr. Weisinger's victory helped end school segregation for Blacks in California. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Visalia Board of Trustees does hereby recognize the significant contribution of Edmund Edward Weisinger in paving the way for Black students in Visalia and all over the United States to attend non-segregated schools, thus receiving an equal chance of quality education. Signed and adopted this day, February 22nd of 2022 by the Visalia Unified School District Board of Trustees. And with that, I would like to invite Emerson Presley to come up, William Youngquist, and Mr. William Henshaw. So these young students and Mr. Henshaw found a story, a local part of our history, Visalia history, that, to be honest, I don't think very many people knew about. And the beautiful part of this story is this changed the landscape for education for students across the United States of America. And for those of you who know about history, in 1954 was the Brown versus Board of Education. This case happened in 1890, which was way before that. And so to celebrate an individual who paved the way for students here, and not just Black students, but all students, this is an opportunity to uncover a story. And this is what the students did. They uncovered a story, a local part of history. But I think the beautiful part of this is an opportunity to celebrate and share other stories. Because just like Mr. Weisinger's story, there are other stories out there of people who made profound, amazing contributions to the changes in the landscape of Visalia. So I would like to thank our students and Mr. Henshaw for supporting them on this journey. I'd also like to shout out our city of Visalia, who also acknowledged this story, and Mr. Weisinger with the proclamation themselves. And there's a plaque back there on the wall, which you can see, that is a recognition of that. But the last thing I would like to say is, this is a lesson for people in general. When things are difficult, you speak up. And these are the situations we're in now, right? To the young lady who had a experience in school, she's speaking up, right? Never wanting to silence anyone to speak up for anything, for things that are right, but also acknowledging that it takes all of us to work to make the things the way we want them to be. So I've always encouraged and will continue to encourage students to use their voice, because their voice may be the only thing that make a difference. So thank you guys so much.
Okay, this is an action item. Is there a motion on this item?
I'd like to make a motion to approve, but
Mr.
before
Villegas
that,
makes
I
a-
also just want to say thank you to Mr. Gridiron for bringing this forward to the board and the city of Visalia. This is something I literally talked about in class today to my students and teaching them about Mr. Weisinger and how that set a precedent. Without Mr. Weisinger, there is no Mendez versus Westminster. Without no Mendez versus Westminster, there is no Brown versus Board of Education. And so this case really set a precedent for paving the way to desegregate our schools. And just thank you to our students for telling this story and for sharing this story. And thank you to Mr. Gridiron. Thank you.
And I'll second, and I want to thank Mr. Henshaw too. Thank you for doing this.
Okay. All in favor?
Student Board Member Velasquez,
I vote yes.
Board Member Villegas,
Yes.
Board Member Blair.
Yes.
Board Member Gaby.
Yes.
I vote yes. President Guerrero.
Yes.
Student Board Member votes yes. Motion carries 5 absent.
Okay, we're gonna move on with our agenda. Our next our item on the agenda is enclosure number 18, proclamation declaring March 2022 Arts Education Month, enclosure number 18. Ms. Camonia.
Whereas art education, which includes dance, drama, theater, music, and the visual arts, is an essential part of this basic education for all students, kindergarten through grade 12. And whereas through well-planned instruction and activities in arts, children development initiatives, self-expression, critical thinking skills, discipline, a heightened appreciation of beauty, and a cross-cultural understandings, now there it be resolved that the Board of Education does hereby recognize the month of March 2022 as Arts Education Month and does encourage all students to celebrate the arts with meaningful student activities and programs that demonstrate learning and understanding in the visual and performing arts.
Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll
Ms. Ga-
second.
There's a motion by Ms. Gailey, second by Ms. Blair. All in favor?
Student Board Member Velasquez,
Yes.
Board Member Blair,
Yes.
Board Member Gaby,
Yes, and thank you so much to our BAPA staff. We have an amazing program
Mhm.
here.
I vote yes. President Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas.
Yes.
Motion carries. Student Board Member voting yes, 5 absent.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is School Discipline and Safety Report. Mr. Brandon Gridiron.
Good evening, board member. Excuse me. Good evening, board president Guerrero, members of the board, interim superintendent Cardoza. I would say I'm excited about this one tonight, but in light of everything that's going on, it's not always the greatest presentation, but it's definitely necessary and something that we definitely want to be transparent in communicating with our community and our board. And the purpose really of tonight is to provide the community and the board an update on school discipline and safety. There's a lot of information here, a lot of data. I will not go over it all with you, but I will highlight some significant points and really use the time to address the areas of challenge and then our focus areas and next steps moving forward. And so we like to start with our why. As a Department of Equity and Student Services, our primary role and responsibility is to provide resources, training, and supports to help our sites build the capacity to meet the needs of their students, staff, and families. We do not actually go out and serve our kids directly. These are our site administrators, our teachers, our staff who are doing that every single day. And what we need to do is make sure we're equipping them with what they need to be able to do that well. One thing I do want to point out is our collective commitment. And I really want to point out the last bullet point, because when we think of discipline and safety, we don't always think of focusing on teaching and learning. And that is really all the things that we are here to support. Everything that we do in relation to student safety and discipline is to focus and foster teaching and learning. We know that these things may impede or impact an individual student's or other students' ability to learn and teachers' ability to teach. And so discipline is a critical part in ensuring that we are teaching our students what they need to be successful in our schools. These are some focus areas for our department. We're really around goal 3 of ensuring a safe and secure and healthy, positive environment for our students that promote a sense of significance and belonging. We know that our students need to feel connected and belonging in our schools to actually be able to thrive well. And so that is an important part in the collective commitment that we all need to make, and that we're a culturally responsive and inclusive learning environment. And then the last one is that we provide systematic and reliable access to the social emotional support students need to ensure that they're able to do well in our schools. So the purpose of tonight is to provide that update for discipline and safety. And what we're really going to be looking at is data from the fall of this year, 2022, but we're going to be comparing it to the 1920 school year because that is the most closest school year where we were actually in person versus last year's data because we were not in person. So the objective is to really review those comparison data and provide some clarity around kind of where we see trends and then really kind of identify our focus areas and next steps. Before I do that, I want to go over this administrative management process. And this process is on our website, but it also lays out for our school sites and administrators on how to effectively respond to discipline issues that arise in our campus. It's also backed by our conduct code, so it's available to parents. But as we look at discipline, as educators, we believe it is our role to teach students how to build positive relationships and behave in ways that strengthen their ability to succeed in schools and in life. And we feel that when we reinforce these positive behaviors and address misbehaviors in a respectful, calm, thorough manner, we teach students important social emotional skills that ultimately enable them to get along with others, make responsible decisions, and again, focus on learning. And so this process lays out 2 distinct areas. When we're making decisions with relation to how we're disciplining students, it is all predicated on around the issues of disruption and safety. If there are situations that pose a safety concern or a disruption to the learning environment of the individual student or other students or teachers, we have to make a difficult decision in some instances of whether that student would be removed from the school setting for a period of time to ensure that threat of safety or that disruption is no longer a concern. And that period of time ultimately it results what we call a suspension from school, removal and involuntary removal from schools, that suspension. But those are the factors that we're looking at. As a district, we do not make the decision of whether the students are removed or not. That is the school site administration's responsibility. We give them all authority to make those decisions, but what we ask of them is to look at whether an infraction actually was committed and whether it contributed to the safety or disruption of the learning environment. If at that point it did those particular things, if those things occurred, then the school site has the ability to make that decision. Obviously, our ultimate goal is to reduce the amount of time students are removed from instruction, because we know that when they're removed from school, they're twice less likely to engage in other things or be further academically behind. And when students are academically behind, it poses so many concerns and challenges. And so what we want to do is make sure that we have alternatives for our sites and opportunities for them to be able to engage students in a way that keeps them in school, but doesn't hinder the learning or the safety of other students. With that being said, we also have a management process for how teachers process situations, right? We don't want teachers to have to be burdened by dealing with these challenges and behaviors all day in their class every day without having an option to request support. But what we do ask is that our teachers attempt to address these things with what we call classroom managed type of situations, things that our teachers already naturally do so great at, because it retains the power from the teacher or retains the power within the classroom of the teacher. But there are also situations where a teacher may not be able to do that because it impacts learning. And so that way a student would be removed and be dealt with by the administration to support with the behavior. But that's the flow chart that explains how the management process for teachers go. And then what we do is ask our teachers to have correction procedures. We don't want them to try things over and over and over again and burn themselves out with all the things that they have to do, but there is an actual correction process. And we want it to be clear to students, clear to parents, clear to teachers, that if these things continue to happen, this is the next steps. Because again, discipline is to teach, but students also need to learn. And there are consequences for behavioral infractions, but those consequences don't always have to be punitive, right? But they are responsive to the needs of the students in these particular situations. And so with that being said, I want to move into safety, because I know that has been brought up a couple different times. And I want to assure everyone, just as a father of children in the district as well, safety of our students and staff are our top priority. We know with the current climate that we're in, things are exacerbated, especially with social media, right? Social media makes things a lot more accessible to both students and to us as far as information goes. Doesn't mean we want to hide that or we don't want to be transparent. We definitely want to know when they're happening. And we kind of sometimes thank social media because we get to kind of know, hey, this is what's being said. But it requires us to respond to issues very quickly. And we work closely with our law enforcement agencies and our outside agencies to make sure that we're addressing these things very seriously. Each case is addressed very seriously. And so when a threat is posed, we have to look at two options, whether it is a substantive threat or a transient threat. And these threats are determined by the intent, the credibility, the means, the mode. If students can actually do these things, that they can follow through, they have history, right? That becomes a more serious thing versus a student who may have just made a comment, posted a picture, or so on and so forth. But each of those is assessed very intently, very thoroughly. And if it becomes a serious situation, we then sometimes directly turn that over to law enforcement. Well, they'll take suit and address the issue. But in all cases, we're making sure that there's a plan put in place to ensure the safety of that student and other students. And so even with these threats, it could be a threat to self or it can be a threat to others. Doesn't matter, they're all taken seriously, and we want the kids to know that. I can say that we've had too many, in my personal opinion, situations where we've had to respond to these things. And some of them are just kids trying to play around. But we want them to know, regardless, this is the response you're going to get. And so if you're playing around or joking around, it's still going to be taken that serious. And sometimes it could result in the student being removed from their instructional setting or even taken into custody. And no, obviously we don't want that to take place, but those are situations that we assess on a case-by-case basis. And so I wanted to go over that really quickly with you all so that you understand both the administrative discipline process, the classroom discipline process, and then how threats are assessed within our district. But now as I go through the data, and I'm going to go through this really quickly and talk through you through the talking points, but you have the data with you and you can look through it and email me if you have any questions. But we have these dashboards and these charts in our Power School system. So this is our data system, and it allows us to look at trends and patterns. We often do this to be able to identify where we need to provide support. These first few charts are just data to indicate that we have about 90, I don't know the number off the top of my head, 98% or 92% and 98% of our kids, if it's whether a classroom managed behavior or office managed behavior, that don't have any incidents. They're not doing these things, right? And that is higher than previous years. So when we look at data, it's actually improving. It's getting better, but this is just one indication. So I don't want to make it out to be that it's all, you know, butterflies and rainbows, right? It's just, this is one set of data that tells us that we're actually doing better than we were in previous years for this time. If we look at our data, and another thing we look at is the behaviors by month. And what you'll look at with this chart is the red area. You can see it's lower in comparison to the blue because we're comparing it to 1920. So this is how we can look at both office managed and serious offenses to see that, hey, we're lower than every single month, we're lower. And this is, I promise you, I didn't just draw this. This is actually in our system. But this is kind of what we get to look at. But the next one you really kind of look at is the rate, right? And that's basically the number of students enrolled in our system divided, or in our district, divided by the number of students who actually have an incident, right? And so when you look at rate, it also gives you a comparison how many students are actually making up these incidents. And what you'll notice with this data in the orange, it's in comparison to the green, there's another decrease for every rate in every month. So basically what this is telling us is that the sheer number of incidents and the rate of students that are involved in incidents are lower each month, right? Now that doesn't mean that the feeling of how these things are addressed is lower, right? But this is just the sheer number of the incidents. And then the next one is really looking at the frequency. And so that is important for us, right? Because frequency tells us how often these things are occurring, right? Are they occurring every day, once a day, 3 times a day, so on and so forth. And so that data gives us kind of an understanding of like, where are these things peaking and where they're spiking? And again, the same thing would reflected in the orange versus the green is that we're lower each single month. And so that doesn't mean that, you know, again, things are perfect, but what it tells us is that we're not getting worse, right? We still have work to do. We still have things that we need to address, but we're not getting worse than we've been in the past. And then obviously in most instances, we also look at demographic data. Who are our student groups, whether it's the age, the grade, the demographic, the ethnicity, race, gender, all of these different things. What student groups are continuously trends? And some people will ask, well, why do we look at this data? We only look at this data to determine whether a student group is impacted in many areas within our system, right? If they're impacted in one area, then what we look at is, are they impacted in other areas? And if they're impacted in other areas, we ask ourselves questions like why? And then we begin to put plans in place to support. And then this same data in relation to suspension rate. And so these are comparisons in relation to what our rate of suspensions is, how many kids are being suspended, and so on and so forth. And then the same thing by month. You can kind of see each month it's declined. Now, and then the rate, and then the frequency. Now, this is a trend consistently. Middle school and 9th grade are kind of those grades where challenges peak up. And so what we want to do is make sure that we transition and work with our kids on those particular areas to provide support. And then again, our demographic. Now, what I do want to point out is a 3-year comparison. You can kind of see from August to December, how many less students were suspended, how many less suspensions we had, and then the change in duration. It seems like we average 2 days every time a student is suspended for years, right? But this is kind of what our data is telling us. And so we just want to be transparent in that. And then again, it's broken up by elementary, middle school, high school, and the totals. So again, what we've seen is a decline in many areas for all of our data as we look across. But I will say that some school sites may have reported higher incidents, right? Not drastically high, but higher incidents. And so I do want to be transparent and acknowledge that we may have, I think we have 3 or 4 school sites that may have had an elevation or increase in some areas. And so those are the ones that we particularly target and provide support in. And so as you can see here, for I want to say high school, we had a slight decline from the 2019, 2020 school year, but an increase from 18-19. So that's kind of where we are. And then overall suspensions, you can kind of see over the 3-year trend how we're going down. Now, again, I don't want you to think that we're just not suspending, because again, suspensions are imminent based on safety and concerns in those respects. But this is kind of what the data is telling us. As you look at particular incidents, what you will see is that we have drops in every particular aspect of like types of behavior. So we've kind of given you the exact examples, with the exception, and I'll show you in another slide, of terroristic threats. This is from August to December, so we'll show you what that looks like when we look at that. And then the same thing with expulsions. Now, I will be transparent with expulsions as well. Although we have a decline, and you can see it here in expulsions, we have had more recommendations for expulsions. So these are situations that may not be reflected in the data because of various different reasons. This expulsion didn't go through for various different circumstances, which could be a manifestation, determination, or qualification, so on and so forth. So irregardless of the fact, plans are put in place to support students, and we want to make sure that we note that. I will throw out, though, that as we look at the data for expulsions, that we have had an increase for high school by a number of 3, and amongst our students in special education by a number of 3. And so that is kind of where our data is on that. And then you can kind of see the suspension rate trends. This data is important because states look at the rate of suspensions. You can kind of see where we are in the 21-22 column to kind of compare where we are with making trajectory and trends as far as whether we're going to be lower than the 19-20 school year or not. And so that's the whole school year for 19-20. But you can kind of see where we started in 2010, where high school was around 12%, and now we're hovering around 6%. And so there has been significant decreases over the course of the last few years. And then here's where I mentioned the terroristic threats. Amongst the top offenses, or the most serious offenses in our district, that is the only one that we've had an increase in comparison to from August to December. And a lot of these have occurred via social media, right? Kids just doing stuff on social media, trends and TikToks and all these different things. I don't want to blame it all on social media. There's other contributing factors to students not being in school for a period of time and engaging in other activities, but we do need to figure out how we can support the impact that social media is having on our students. And then here's just 3-year trends of data. I'm not going to go through all that because I've already shared it with you, but these are just different bar graphs, and you can have this for yourself. You'll see the 18 terroristic threats in comparison to the other data sets. And then the same thing for these other 4 offenses. And so this one is a comparison for the number of incidents. As you can see, it goes down. So when a student is suspended once, twice, 3, it is going down over time. We don't have very many students being suspended, multiple times in relation to a one-time offense. And this is kind of what we look at with recidivism. The goal is that students don't have repeat offenses. They've learned from their choices, and that we've really taught them the skills that they can utilize to improve their behavior. And then this last one, what you'll notice is this broken up by demographic group. I will point out that our students that are foster and our students that are in special education have had an increase, obviously, in the suspension numbers that you see there, from 302 to 320, from 47 to 50. And so those are 2 student groups that we do want to keep an eye out on just to make sure that it's not increasing and continuing to provide support to work in that area. And then the last few charts that I will point out is, this is a startling number, and 253 expulsions in 2010, 2011. That's a lot of kids being taken out of their school environment and put into a different program. Knowing that we want to service all of our kids in any program that they're in, we also know the data and what it states when students are expelled from school and the impact that it has on them and ultimately on our community. So we want to be mindful that our last alternative doesn't mean we won't use it, but our last alternative is to bring forward a student for a recommendation for expulsion. But if in those cases it does happen, they go through a process and it will determine whether a student will be removed from their school setting. I don't know. I think I turned this off. I think the batteries ran out. No, you're good. Okay, there it goes. And so this is the same data for those groups for expulsions. No significant increases there other than our students in special education. And these are expulsion numbers for the types of infractions, which you'll see that physical injuries and fights have increased from 1920 to this year. And then the same thing for the grade. What you'll see is that there is no increases amongst the grade, with the exception of, I believe, no decreases there. 11th grade is the only one that had a three student increase. And so what does this all mean for us? And I'm wrapping up here is in September, we gave out a survey, and I'll find an opportunity to go over this in more thorough detail, but we gave out a survey assessing the culture and climate of our district. We looked at 3 factors: engagement, safety, and environment. And this is what our data has told us, based on the 13,000 students that completed the survey from 5th through 12th grade, is that there are 2 or 3 distinct areas. One of the lowest areas, excuse me, Eric, it's the physical environment. The students rated it low, but I will point out is the bathrooms, right? The kids, and we know this based on what we've gotten report from kids, is the issues that are happening in the restrooms. And these are something that we're going to address. So it's not actually you guys doing anything. It's just them feeling comfortable going to that space. And then also our students and their mental health, we can see that at a 2.70. And so when we look at these 2 areas, those are areas that will tell us that we need to really kind of look at that as areas of focus. So as I wrap up in conclusion, there are focus areas that we definitely have. One of those focus areas is student engagement to eliminate peer conflict. How we engage our students during the instructional day is what matters most. When students are in school, our time should be focused on engaging them, either in instruction or during supervision, or allowing them to have fun and engage in activities. Obviously, with everything we've experienced with the pandemic, we didn't get to start the year traditionally like we would, with rallies and dances and all the things that get kids excited about coming to school. But we have an opportunity to do that now. We also know that we're going to increase our support with what's happening in the restrooms through our installation of vaping sensors and different things like that. Youth mental health, social media use and the impact and the threats that it's caused. Supporting and working with our special education department to really look at how we support our students in special education. And then the last 2 areas is data, looking at our data to determine where we need to make adjustments, implementing systems within our schools that allow us to be efficient, effective, and equitable in how we respond to these issues, and then creating practices that give our administrators and teachers a robust menu of interventions for how to address these issues. And then ultimately mindset and accountability. And there was a slide in there that I had earlier, which I didn't share, but we have to ask ourselves what we think about when we think about discipline. Because typically discipline is seen as we don't want to talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I even started it off that way, right? But it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to help support kids, for us to correct some of the behavior. And data tells us that 40% of our kids come to the schools with the social emotional skills needed to be able to do well. And that's for various different reasons. And so how do we remove that barrier and help shift the mindset that this thing that's happening with this kid, as difficult as it may be, is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to change the course or trajectory of his or her life and help them to be well. And then the last piece is us helping to hold our people accountable to doing that. And what does that look like, right? And how do we support them through the resources? And so these are the multiple things that I just laid out and I mentioned, but I want to be clear that this is a myriad of things that we're going to be doing and we're already started doing. One of the things that I do want to point out is that we will be creating a youth engagement task force and really looking at how do we engage our students in productive ways during this pandemic. What does that look like? What is the impact that social media is having on our youth and how do we respond to that? I'm not saying social media is all bad, but it ain't the greatest. So how do we make sure that we're supporting them with the impact that that's having on them? And then really focusing on the mental health of both our students and our adults. I can tell you, this is one of the most challenging years that I've ever experienced in education. And I would say that's probably been the case for many of the adults that I've spoken to and many of the adults in this room. We are not supposed to do it this way. We know that. But we're in a situation where we're, in many instances, forced to make decisions that are maybe contrary to what we all believe, right? And how we respond to that and how we adjust to that is really critical. And so we have to adjust to the mental health impact that this is having on the people in the building every single day. And then the last one is we have forums. We have one on the 24th. I would encourage anyone to come. It's on Zoom. There's a link if you want to know about it. It's an opportunity to get input from the community and teachers and students, anybody's welcome, about how do we tackle this issue? Because as I mentioned earlier, it is a community effort. We live in this community. In order for it to be the way we want it to be or improve the way we want it to improve, we all have a part in that. And everyone's input and perspective is valued and respected in that approach. And so as I wrap it up, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to go through this long presentation. But I do feel that it's important to be transparent and clear with the expectations of how discipline is addressed across our district, and to acknowledge that we can get better. We can always improve, and that's what we're here to do as we look at the data and support our students. With that, is there any questions?
Does any board member have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for just going through all of this with us. I know this took you time, and you just do a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Anyone else?
yeah, I'd like to say I visited some schools recently, and they have implemented some of these systems, and they're working. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So first off, thank you for the report, but thank you that you keep going back to focusing on student voice and including them and letting them have ownership of some of these. We often try to fix the problem for them, and I just appreciate that you're including them. And acknowledge the fact that 94% of our students have 0 to 1 incidents. And then how do we focus on the teaching of the rest? But really that a lot of our students are making the right choices day after day after day. And that's just awesome. The one question is, social media is a new animal. I mean, like it's very difficult to navigate. How are we trying to learn how to better navigate it? Are there districts that we can learn from that are doing kind of like a better job being proactive? Is there groups that are having success with this? Like, I know I don't have the answer, but like, how do we figure out how to navigate this better?
Yeah, and you mentioned it a minute ago, is we have to include our students who know about these platforms, right? They actually inform me so much about what social media is. Terrible thing is, and I'm gonna say this out loud, I don't have social media, but the kids have made it clear to me, Mr. Gridiron, you have to get social media. How are you gonna know how to interact with us, right? And so I intend to get social media, not to really be on it like that, but to be able to understand what our kids are experiencing, and then really try and flip the narrative in relation to what they're interested in. Like, we can't contend with TikTok. Like, it's just the biggest thing ever right now. But could we influence the new wave of what trend is happening on TikTok, that kids are more interested in this than that? And I think that's where that youth engagement task force is so important. To answer your question, are there other districts? I'm sure there are. And those are the things that we intend to explore. We've emailed our state superintendent probably 2 years ago to really implore him to look at this, because we knew that this was going to be the wave. And so we're hoping that that there's a bigger push and initiative, not to ban social media, but to really understand it and how to contend with what kids are being influenced by. So we'll continue to provide that. And then as we get more, we'll provide updates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that, and I'm hopeful that the state superintendent will take this issue up. My question is around what sort of steps are we taking around recidivism and decreasing recidivism among students? You know, what, if you could briefly tell us a little bit about what are some of the steps or actions that we take to ensure that students who have an incident or involved with an incident don't repeat that behavior?
Yeah, and that's an important one. I want to say about 2 or 3 years ago, we instituted something that every student who may be involved in an infraction, especially if it's a suspendable offense, would have something that is called a reinstatement plan. And so this is an opportunity for a plan to be put in place with the student and the parent, as much as we can get them involved in the process, to ensure that the student is successful as they transition back to school, because we know that those issues may still persist, which is why suspension just as a punitive measure alone doesn't address the behavior, because excuse me, those issues may still be there. So how do we use some restorative measures, restorative practices? And restorative practices not in the sense that we look over the issue and we say we're gonna just talk to the kid, but that we utilize restorative practice in a way to address the issue as it's going on. And those reinstatement plans and those continuous follow-ups with the student are super important, excuse me. And so as we go through that process, that's one piece. But it's also looking at the types of infractions that occur that, that create recidivism, excuse me. Excuse me. It's the type of infractions that occur that continue to create recidivism. So, you know, restorative practices is a big component of it. I can't say that it isn't, because it actually allows the student to take responsibility for their actions. And what we do know is that through empathy and through them understanding how it impacted others, it's less likely to be in a situation that will occur. But the last thing I will say to this is, although our data may suggest that numbers are down, right? How people feel is as important as anything else. And what I mean by that is, do they feel supported? That means the teachers, the administrators, the students, and the parents. And how they feel supported is the responses that we have when these things occur or prior to them occurring. So do they know that Mr. Gridiron is going to be in here if I'm having struggles with behavior? And he's not going to be in there to criticize what I'm doing with instruction. He's in my classroom to provide support to the challenges that I may be facing, or to really look through my instructional practices to improve some of these behavioral challenges that I'm having, or that I'm just calling a kid in to say, hey, great job. You've been doing an awesome job for the past 3 weeks, right? We don't often respond to students until there's an issue. So being proactively engaging with kids is just as important as how we respond to them, right? And we need to respond to them in ways that uplift their behavior and encourage them to have continuous positive behavior. And that's ways you decrease recidivism, is that they know that you're there to support them, and the parents in the process as well. And so those are some of the things that we're doing.
Brandon, what is Project Peacekeeper?
So Project Peacekeeper is something that actually our coordinator of Equity and Student Services, Mr. Frank Escobar, is working. And it's really about getting our community to be a part of engaging with our students in productive ways. And so what we're hoping to have is that we have community members who want to volunteer their time, and we're working with our Human Resources Department to go through the process of getting these individuals trained and vetted and cleared to be on our campus to just engage our students in positive, productive ways. And there's really an opportunity for them to engage the students to keep the peace, right? So they're not engaged in other things. We know that through active supervision, and the more we engage kids, less likely they can engage in other things. But this is an opportunity just for our community members to be a part of supporting the positive culture and climate shift on our campuses. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at doing.
So how are you going to set up, or how is a student engagement task force going to be set up?
Yeah, so that is really in the essence of kind of working with our community common ground task force. And we have members who are interested in being a part of that, right? And so it's actually looking at how do we get an informational night, and us sitting there and talking about how do we want to assemble this task force. Is it just anybody who volunteers? Is there specific people? Because we've assembled task force in the past, and the question has always been, how do we get these people? Who was selected, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we definitely have to figure out. How are we going to identify who should be involved? We want individuals at all levels involved. We want individuals with diverse perspective involved. We don't want everybody agreeing on everything, but we want everybody who has a position and an opinion about, hey, what's best for our kids. And as people want to volunteer, we've had people who emailed and reached out. We're going to encourage them to do that. Once we launch this, we will actually send out information for people who are interested to apply or to sign up. And then depending on how many people we get and how many people we want to have in the task force, we will then weed and investigate how many, who should be a part of it, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Brandon. Information only. Mr. Sullivan, you're up next. Local Control Accountability Plan LCAP Supplemental Annual Update, Enclosure 20.
Good evening, Board President Guerrero. Sorry, Doug. Interim Superintendent, Mr. Cardoza. My name is Jim Sullivan. I'm the Administrator of Families and Community Services. I'm here to share with you, the state has asked and has created a supplemental annual report that we have to do before February, we have to share with you. Today, I'm going to kind of briefly do a brief overview of our local control accountability plan because many of our board members are new to this process. I'm going to also talk about our current plans and how they're aligned to our LCAP. And also we have received an additional concentration funds from the state and how when we looked at and met with our community partners, what they would like to see us do with those additional funds and then our next steps. So back in 2013, sorry, I can't see that far. Back in 2013, the state passed a law that requires us to have a local control accountability plan. This plan is a 3-year plan. So it's updated every 3 years. Actually, we update it every year, but then it can be, we really evaluate it to change it every 3 years. We receive funds based on the number of students who are English learners, foster youth, or who are identified as socioeconomically disadvantaged. We work with our partners. You can see the list there that helps develop this plan. And currently in our plan, we have 62.9 million. Those are supplemental concentration funds, which are state funds. And then we have federal funds, which are the Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV are also in this plan. So how do all 3 of our plans that we currently have in place? We currently have our expanded learning opportunity plan. We passed the ESSER 3 plan in October. They all work together towards our LCAP. And our LCAP is, or the goals of those plans are your goals that you have adopted. So back in May, our expanded learning opportunity plan, it included counselors for most of our sites, additional social workers and paraprofessionals. And if you remember, we recognized that those funds would go away in 2022. So we will have spent those funds. And then in October, you approved our ESSER 3 plan, which will then allow this plan to move on forward for the next 2 years. The best news is that the state is giving us additional concentration funds that we will have that are going to be considered ongoing. And those funds are community partners. When I met with parents, principals, other stakeholders, is that they would like us to continue to allocate those funds specifically for our counselors, social workers, and our paraprofessionals. So that way our plans can continue on. So that's all written in this plan. That's up on our website. Also so it's going to kind of look like this of the 4.5 million. You'll see a large portion is part of our counselors. About 70% of the funds will be used towards counselors, 20% for paraprofessionals, and 11% for social workers. So I wanted to share with you just so you had an idea of how to read this for those of us that are new to the LCAP. The top portion is really just our metrics that we have for each of our goals. The metrics are like our tools that we use to measure our progress. You can see that it has what our base is and then what our goal is in the next 3 years. The next part is just a sample of an activities that this example is for our Family Community Resource Center. You can see how much money we allocated and how much money we've currently spent for this year. And we need to have spent, we should be around 50% of the money allocated should be the money that's spent because we have another half of the year left. So for our next steps is that we'd like to meet with you so we can have more in-depth discussion about the LCAP, what's actually written in our LCAP, an explanation of our metrics. Once when we're working with you, we also then schedule meetings with our district advisory committee, our English learner advisory committee. We meet with students, we meet with staff to have an input of about our current plan and how we might change it a little. And then we do a rough draft that I will share with you in March or April. And then we share, if you remember, in April, we do kind of a survey, if you will. We give the community an opportunity to provide feedback for us. And then you approve it in June. Any questions?
Does the board have any questions or comments?
For our members of the public, can you clarify how to access the LCAP plan on our district website? In case you
Sure.
want to look at it.
Yes, sure. If you go to our About the USD, it's on the left-hand side. At the bottom, towards the middle of it, it'll say plans or single school plans, and you can see it there. It's accessible there. And I'd be happy to show anybody. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, this is information only. Thank you. Okay, we go now to the student representative, the representative report, Ms. Velasquez.
Hi, I'll begin this evening's report with LD. So last week they held their kindness week and they had dress up days and they had lunchtime activities like they held yoga in their dance room and then they did rock painting as well. Moving on to Golden West, we're holding our annual 8th grade welcome this Thursday. So we'll be giving tours to the incoming 9th graders. And our FFA program wrapped up their Kiss a Cow fundraiser and they raised about $1,700 for their program, which was pretty neat. And moving on to Mount Whitney, their cheer team competed in the first CIF Southern Cheer Championship this weekend, and they placed second. So congrats to them. And their FFA, for FFA week, they're hosting events every night, including a parent night and a petting zoo. And then finally with Redwood, their boys soccer is on their way to the semifinals and they are playing tonight in Bakersfield. And their mock trial is heading to state and their Redwood Silver team is now Tulare County champions. And that concludes my board report. Thank you.
Okay, we really enjoy your reports. We like to hear them. Okay, now we go into board member reports, requests. Ms. Blair.
I got to visit Redwood. I got to walk around the campus and with Mr. Shin and was just really impressed by their school and got to walk into Mr. Kuhn's class. I was immediately engaged, like just having him here was exciting. But I got to watch him using a table saw and all the kids, like no one has their phone out. Everyone's watching, everyone's paying attention. It was just great. And then they had 103 chickens that were there. So I got to play with the baby chicks. And it's just an awesome school. And the kids were engaged and happy. I got to walk into Ken Cox's class and see, I just wish I would have taken all of the metal shop and I don't know, I want to redo high school because it looks so fun. And then I also got to go to VTech and they had, I didn't get to go see the pigs, but their pigs were born too. Anyway, it was, those were my two schools. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Villegas.
Awesome. I also got to tour Redwood High School, Principal Shin, and I want to reiterate that, yeah, the mechanic shop, the auto shop, I mean, I was blown away as somebody who's worked in an auto shop before, just by all the resources that they have, that the work that they've done to get these models for students to work on as well. It just, brings back memories, and I'm so excited that students have these opportunities, and I'm looking forward to touring the rest of our high schools as well. I was able to, alongside our area administrator Beto and trustee Case Soleno, visit several of our charter schools last week as well, including VTech, ECIS, and Global Learning Charter. And yeah, just really impressed with a lot of the innovation going on in these schools, the access to resources and, students. I was really excited to see this like whole setup for like the esports team, including chairs and desktops, and also thinking about how they can use these for future classes related to math, coding, etc. Along with several of you, I was also able to watch the Green Acres perform Annie, which was really amazing and wonderful. And it was so great to see our students participating in the visual and performing arts. It was great to see the Rotary Theater now remodeled. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first performance there, right? Now that it's been remodeled. So really glad that I was able to see and participate in that. And also in the Student Achievement Awards with all of you recognizing all of our outstanding students here in the district. And finally, I want to make sure I got my information right. I wanted to remind members of the public and inform them if they weren't aware before that tomorrow we're actually going to be having a drive-through backpack school supply giveaway right here in the district office, beginning at 4 p.m. until supplies last. And I want to thank United Way of Tulare County, VUSD, Altura Medical Centers, and all the partners involved in this effort to make sure that students have the resources that they need. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Gaby.
So first, thank you to Superintendent Cardoza for pushing that we do have our first dance back. And thank you to all the staff. I know it was a huge amount of work having it outdoors, but it was fabulous. As the parent of a high schooler, I actually think it's better than pre-COVID. The students all went and actually went to the dance and danced, and it just was such a wonderful event for them. So thank you. And yes, if VTech is missing baby goats, it's probably at one of our houses. We'll just admit to that now. They're super cute. But really impressive is just the students there and the responsibility that it builds. And they told us about using the ultrasound on them. And it was just amazing to hear all that they're learning out there. And lastly, with GLC, I got to go out there and talk to them. They are in the midst of deciding on a mascot and school colors, something that was never originally done when the school was founded. And it's really impressive that they are having the students go through the whole process of learning about the vision for where the school started and how you go about naming. And I know they're going to come to the board and do a presentation with their ideas. It's not just everybody pick a name and we're going to vote on it. They're really going through the process of how, and they wanted to know how we pick names for schools and how we pick mascots. And they were just great students with great questions. And thank you to that staff for kind of facilitating that process. So.
Thank you. Ms. Gamonian.
I actually went by the dance and it was beautiful. I had text board member Gaby and see if she wanted to go with me. And she goes, if you want my daughter to kill me. So she didn't go, but it was just beautiful. I just want to give kudos to the ASB directors, the principals. It was beautiful. I visited quite a few schools. I visited Whitney. I got a chance to talk with Mr. Aguilar. He had their staff development, I think it was on the 14th. He did a lot of bonding, trying to create a family atmosphere that I actually feel there. He asked his staff, what are the things that you really need? And from there, they came up with policies for behavior, for cell phones. He's sending weekly emails out to the staff because one thing they said they would love more communication so they know everything that's going on for the day. Their cheerleading team is in the state finals and their boys basketball team was the first seed. So that was really good. I got to go to LD, same thing. On their staff development day, same thing, what is it that the teachers need? And so Mrs. Nelson also came up with the staff's cell phone policies, discipline policies, also more communication. And she sends out weekly updates on Sunday nights with really fun kind of little things relevant things that connect the staff and the students to the school. And I also visited their esports, which is going to become a CIF sport. It was amazing. I want to just give kudos to Mr. Marquez, who started that program. And the kids just love it. I was kind of teasing because I was a teacher for so many years. And I said, now all the kids that were sleeping in my class because they were up till 3 a.m. playing video games, now they get to do it at school. So makes them a little bit more engaged. Got to visit Cottonwood Creek. I kind of asked the principals, what is it they're most proud of? And Dr. Joyner loves her math lab. She's got a math lab going. She's got a certificated teacher in there too, paraprofessional. She also has a strong reading intervention program. I got to visit classrooms, and I just get amazed when I go in classrooms how kids are just learning and they're all on task. And it was really fun. Like when she walks in, they all run up to her, like, hey, I was wrestling and I know I shouldn't have been wrestling. They were like confessing all their sins to her. It was kind of cute. And then I also went to VTech. I saw baby goats and I got to see the baby pigs that were born 12 hours earlier. And I'm just impressed with those kids because they assume so much responsibility on that farm. Yet many of them, they don't want to go into ag, and that's okay, but they have other dreams. And the one girl, she gave me this beautiful big bunch of broccoli. She wants to go to college, and I can't remember what she wanted, like a business major. I couldn't remember. But those kids, they want to go to college. They don't necessarily want to be ag teachers, but in their head, it's college. So I just really enjoyed watching all the fun things that are going on around our district.
Good. Myself, I also enjoyed the Annie play, and being in the Rotary Theater and just the way it is now, you're able to sit down and enjoy a play. Those seats were all repaired, and the walls and the acoustics, that was all really good. The Student Achievement Awards, we were all at that, and just seeing all that, the students come up and all their accomplishments. And I have grandkids also that attended the Winter Formal, and they were telling me about how great a time they had over there. I do have one request. I want to know when the listening sessions for the student voice is going to occur at our high schools, and so that we can schedule that. The board, as I understood it, there'll be 3 board members at each session, and we all will select or wherever our sites are at, and we'll go to those high schools. So if we can get something on board line soon on that. And your report, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. As I listened tonight, I appreciate Brandon bringing the data out for us to see with discipline. But one of the things as I sit and I listen to all our board member reports and all the fantastic things that we have going on in our district, we're tasked with finding out how to connect more kids to those opportunities. So it's not a lack of opportunity in our district, but figuring out what the roadblocks are that some kids are not connected to these opportunities. So we've really got to work on how we connect kids, because we know when kids are connected to a meaningful adult. Mr. Kuhn, for instance, the intrinsic motivation kids have to do the right thing for Mr. Kuhn and not disappoint Mr. Kuhn is where we all need to be. And so within all of these programs, those are the type of leaders that motivate kids, that create an intrinsic motivation that help kids make good decisions and stay connected to school. So I challenge all of us to really work on opening doors for all of our kids. And those kids that are struggling with behavior, they've got to have that connectivity to a meaningful adult. And I know Mr. Gridiron had some ideas for years about trying to connect every kid with an adult on our campus. So they have that one person that expects them to succeed and do well. And that makes a world of difference. So we've got to get kids connected to these great opportunities that we're all spoken about today. That's my report. Thank you.
Staff dismiss. Our next item on the agenda is administrative panel recommendations, and that would be enclosure number 21. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gaby. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Blair. All in favor?
Board Member Blair,
Yes.
Board Member Gaby.
Yes.
I vote yes. President Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 to absent.
We'll move into our general agenda. Initial contract negotiations, proposal of the California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 83 to Visalia Unified School District 22-23 school year. This is the first reading. Mr. Sanchez, Andrew Sanchez.
Good evening, Board President Guerrero, trustees and Superintendent Mr. Cardoza. I'm Andrew Sanchez, and I am a full-time specialized learning center support technician for our school district, while also serving simultaneously as our CSEA Visalia Chapter 83 president. I'm here today to present the first reading of our Sunshine Proposal for the 2022-23 reopener contract term negotiations between CSEA Visalia 83 and Visalia Unified School District. Background summary: Government Code Section 3547 requires all initial contract proposals of the board and an employee organization which relate to matters within the scope of representation be presented at a public meeting and be made available for public review on the district's website for a reasonable period of time. CSEA will present their initial contract to be sunshined and then negotiated. The board will hold a public hearing on March 8th, 2022, and allow the public to comment on their proposal prior to formally acknowledging receipt of CSEA's initial contract proposal. Our initial proposal reads as follows. The following constitutes CSEA's initial bargaining proposal for the 2022-23 reopener contract term. Article 10, Health and Welfare Benefits. The district shall provide for the full increased cost of the current health and welfare benefits for all eligible employees and their dependents. Article 11, Holidays. CSEA and VUSD mutually agree to open Article 11, Holidays, to negotiate the Juneteenth holiday. Article 13, Salary. CSEA seeks a fair and equitable increase to the classified salary schedule. CSEA would like to propose longevity language within our salary schedule. And CSEA also seeks a one-time off-salary schedule payment for all classified staff. All other articles and or language not specifically listed shall remain status quo. CSEA Visalia Chapter 83 looks forward to engaging in faithful and positive negotiations that will benefit all classified staff and most importantly, our students. Thank you.
Okay, that was information only. Our next item on the agenda is Visalia Unified School District interest for 22-23 classified negotiations. Mr. Andy DeMayo.
Thank you, President Guerrero and Superintendent Cardoza, School Board. I'm here tonight along with my colleague, Mr. Sanchez, to share the district's proposal for contract negotiations this year. As Andrew said, tonight is just your opportunity to hear our initial thoughts, give you a couple weeks to think about it, and also the public a chance if they want to ask any questions or need any clarity on that. So ours are as follows. We want to provide the highest education for our children as our first priority. We want to support our employees and maintain staff at the most efficient levels. We want to ensure extra and co-curricular programs and opportunities for students. We want to maintain district reserves to preserve instructional programs and goals for all students during economic cycles, and we want to engage in open and honest exchange of information through collaboration and objective negotiations with the California School Employees Association and its Chapter 83. Our initial proposal is as follows. Article 5, Organizational Rights. Article 10, Employee Benefits. Article 13, Salary. And as Andrew already suggested, our mutual opener this year is we're going to be opening Article 11, which is Holidays. And as I said, this is just a read-only option for you tonight.
Thank you. That was information only. Our next item on the agenda is enclosure number 24, recommendation to adopt and approve salary schedule updates to the Visalia Unified School District salary schedules. Kayla Johnson.
Good evening, Board President Guerrero, members of the board, and Interim Superintendent Cardoza. My name is Kyla Johnson. I'm the Finance Director here at Visalia Unified School District. Tonight, I am here to bring you the results of our CalPERS, the California Public Employees Retirement System School Employer Review for our classified management, confidential, and classified employees. In July of 2021, the Visalia Unified School District underwent a routine CalPERS audit for fiscal years 15-16 through fiscal year 21-22. The objective of the review was to determine whether or not the school employer pay schedules and pay rates were in compliance with government code and also the California Code of Regulations. Within the California Code of Regulations, there are 8 areas that must be met for pay schedules, and they are listed there. Of most importance is making sure that there's a time base, and that would include whether it's hourly, daily, biweekly, monthly, or an annual salary schedule. Also include the position titles for every position, and then also include an effective date. And the second part of the audit was whether or not the pay schedules and reported pay rates represent the correct full-time pay rates, and that's based on 40 hours per week for the classified members. CalPERS selected 60 contracting school agencies for review, and they were looking to see if the procedures that were in place in the government code and California Code of Regulations were met with the employer's pay schedules and if they were reporting their pay rates correctly. And the review period was from January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2020. Overall, the review identified that 58 of the 60 employers, approximately 97%, either did not have pay schedules that met the requirements of the California Code of Regulations, or their reported pay rates were not in compliance with government code and the California Code of Regulations. In terms of the pay schedules not in compliance, that is on the graph, it's the first item, 87% of those reviewed did not have pay schedules that were in compliance and met all the requirements in California Code of Regulations. The results for classified for Visalia Unified, we were found to be non-compliant with the California or with the classified salary schedule. The school board did approve salary increases for the California State Employees Association. However, the salary schedule was not approved by the board. We worked with CalPERS Employer Account Management to bring our salary schedules to you so that they are in compliance. On the left side is the before. It states that there is no effective date. So on the right-hand side, we have updated it to reflect the fiscal year, the effective date, and then when it was revised and adopted by the board. So you can see where the changes were to bring those into compliance. And then in terms of our full-time pay rates, they reviewed that and we were found to be in compliance. So that means that we did not have any issues with our retirement reporting that we do each month for employees. And at this time, I'll ask if there's any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? This is an action item and there is a motion and you have the motion at your table. Is there a
Yes.
motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt and approve the revision to the language of the classified salary schedules for the years 2015-16, 2016-17, 2017-18, 2018-19, 2019-20, 2020-21, and 2021-22, and that the adoption and approval be retroactive to July 1st, 2015.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Villegas. All in favor?
Board Member Gaby,
Yes.
I vote yes. Board Member Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas,
Yes.
Board Member Blair,
Yes.
motion carries 5-2 absent.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next item, which is enclosure number 25, recommendation to adopt and approve salary schedule updates to Visalia Unified School District classified management and confidential salary schedules, enclosure 25. Kayla Johnson.
Okay, and this is a continuance from the previous presentation, and this is for our classified management and confidential salary schedules. As I previously mentioned, 87% of those school employers that were reviewed did not have pay schedules that met all the requirements. Visalia Unified was found to be non-compliant with the classified management and confidential salary schedules. Our classified management and confidential salary schedules did not have a time base, meaning that we did not indicate on there that it was an annual pay schedule. So we worked with CalPERS Employer Account Management to bring that salary schedule into compliance. And again, I have a before and an after. So you can see on the before, we had a fiscal year. And then after we included the fiscal year, the effective date, the date that it was revised and adopted by the board. And then on the actual salary schedule, you can see that we added a rate type that shows that it is annual. And then in terms of our full-time pay rates, we were in compliance. And again, that means that there was no issues with our retirement reporting. Any questions?
Questions or comments? Okay, this is again an action item. I need a motion for enclosure number 25.
I make a motion to adopt and approve the revision to the language of the classified management and the confidential salary schedules for the years 2015-16, 2016-17, 2017-18, 2018-19, 2019-20, 2020-21, and 2021-2022, and that the adoption and approval be retroactive to July 1, 2015.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Villegas, all in favor?
President Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas,
Yes.
Board Member Blair,
Yes.
Board Member Gaby.
Yes.
I vote yes, motion carries 5-2 absent.
We move now to enclosure number 26, recommendation resolution to eliminate particular kinds of classified services, classified position. Enclosure number 26. Andy DeMayo.
Kyla did that on purpose. President Guerrero, Superintendent Cardoza, and School Board, I am back with you again. Once again, this is our annual presentation to you to talk about current positions we have in our bargaining unit that we are requesting elimination. You do have the attachment in front of you that will show you. This is in keeping with the new language of the law that made some changes to when these eliminations needed to take place. So I'm asking you tonight for your consideration and a motion to make these eliminations happen.
Are there any questions or comments? This is an action item, so I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gaby. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Ms. Gamodian. All in favor?
Board Member Blair,
Yes.
Board Member Gaby. I vote yes. President Guerrero,
Yes.
Board Member Villegas.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2 absent.
There are no items left on the agenda. This meeting's adjourned.